Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host, Armando Venditti, and in this episode of Misguided or Misunderstood, I'm going to be talking about another album from a band that some people think is fantastic, amazing. Some people think it's pure crap. Um, and these days, that would include the band themselves. The band I'm talking about is Kiss. And the album I'm talking about is Music from the Elder. Now, the Music from the Elder was recorded, uh, in 1981. It was released in November of 1981, produced by Bob Ezrin, released on Casablanca Records. Um, it was recorded in Connecticut, in Toronto, in New York, in various studios. The idea for the album was supposed to be Kiss's concept album, and that there is this order of gentlemen that are looking for a boy who has the ability or the power to combat evil. And with the guidance of the elders, this boy, this prodigy, will learn um, all there is to know of how to be um, a combatant of evil in the order of the rose. Okay. Um, this was a very interesting time for the band. They were in a bit of a state of transition. Peter Criss had left, and they released the album Unmasked, which was not a hit in North America. It was more of a hit um, in places like Australia and in Europe. Prior to that, they released Dynasty, which they had the massive disco tinged hit, I Was Made for Loving You. They wanted to get back to their rock roots because let's face it, Kiss were a rock band, a hard rock band from New York City. And they built up their reputation as being just that, a hard rock band from the streets that had a fantastic stage and light show. And you know, that's how they built a reputation. The original intention was to record a hard rock album, and then Gene Simmons, sitting in a hotel lobby in California, Los Angeles, started writing out this outline for a story of this boy who, again, with the help of the elders from the Order of the Rose, was going to become this champion against evil. And Bob Ezrin, at the time, thought that this would be a good idea for a concept album. And Kiss wanted um, to win over the critics with a concept album. They thought that this was their way to gain praise and gain some prestige from the critics. It was to do a concept album. And again, Bob Ezrin, just had come off of doing The Wall, which was a massive hit for him and Pink Floyd. So Kiss thought that this was their way to gain credibility. Now, it's all well and good. But it must be said that Ace Frehley really was not up for this idea. He did not like the idea. And Eric Carr, who had basically joined the band about a year before, really had no voting rights in the band. He was basically hired as a crew member. I don't want crew member in that he was on salary. He wasn't an official part of the member of the band. He was on salary, and he had no voting rights within the group. So they started recording. They ran into difficulty because Ace Frehley refused to go to Toronto to record with Bob Ezrin. He didn't like working with Bob Ezrin because of their arguments during Destroyer. And but let's be fair. At that point, while making Destroyer, Ace Frehley was not around to contribute much, and he admits that. So they started to record this album, and they got it done by hook or by crook. At this point, Ezrin wasn't around that much. He was having issues with demons of his own. So that basically left Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons at the helm of the whole project. Some of them they would be working separately in different studios trying to get this done. So the album was done. It's given to the record company to listen to. Bob Ezrin took it to New York to have them listen to the playback to the album. And apparently you could hear a pin drop because it wasn't what the record company expected from Kiss. And it was a complete departure from what they were wanting from the band. Also, Casablanca at that time was going through an ownership change with Neil Bogart on the way out, and Neil Bogart selling the company to Polygram. Now, there were two acts that had a clause in the contract that stipulated that they could leave if Neil Bogart was no longer there as they had the company. They were Kiss and Donna Summer. I do believe Donna Summer opted to take that clause to exercise that right. Kiss didn't. I do believe that, and I may be wrong, but I do believe that they were paid a large amount of money by Polygram to stay on at Casablanca. Donna Summer would go on to sign to Geffen Records and release her album The Wanderer in 1981. So the album gets recorded, everything gets sent off to the presses, the album is packaged. Paul Stanley walks into a record store in New York City, sees his hand on the poster for the advertisement, and thinks, what the hell have we done? He does not like that. He freaks out. He is scared. Well, he had a right to be, because the album did not sell. I do believe it sold more in Europe than it did in North America. The single that was released from the album was A World Without Heroes, which was written, I do believe, between Gene Simmons and Lou Reed, contributed also lyrical ideas. Also, Bob Ezrin was, I do believe, had a writing credit for the song. That was the ballad. There was the second track on side 2. I like the song. I've always liked that song. But the album is just confusing. I mean, the original run through of the album starts with the track Fanfare, which is a short instrumental, and then it goes into Just a Boy. Well, when Casablanca heard the test pressing that was brought in, they quickly changed up the running order of the album to put the more rocking tracks, The Oath, um, Just a Boy, um, oh God, Mr. Blackwell, things of that nature, near the beginning of the album to sort of get the fans interested in what they were doing in terms of the music. Um, Fanfare on the version I have comes as track 2 after The Oath. The Oath is a good song. The Oath was also released as a single, second single. And they did promote this album. They did television spots. They did appearances on Solid Gold, if you remember Solid Gold out there, and the night live, the Saturday Night Live ripoff, Fridays on ABC. They did 3 performances. They did A World Without Heroes. They did The Oath, and they performed I. And they did some promotion in Europe. They did not do an official tour for this album because the sales were quite poor. Again, this was Kiss's attempt to do a concept album. And in the eyes of the fans, they were staying aboard a sinking ship because to the fans, the band had lost the plot. And it wasn't until after the album came out that the band agreed with the fans that they had lost the plot. I don't know whether they thought this was going to be their version of The Wall or their Tommy. They actually did say in interviews with Flo and Eddie, of all people, that the Who had Tommy, we have the Elder. The album is quite good. There are songs like Under the Rose, Only You, Mr. Blackwell, Dark Light, which features, I believe it's the only track that Ace Frehley wrote and features him on lead vocals. Escape from the Island, which is an instrumental that I believe all 4 of them contributed to. And the last track of the on the album is I, which is more of an anthemic rocker type of a track. I think actually I'm not even sure that Eric Carr performed on that track on drums. I believe it was somebody else. I believe it was maybe Anton Fig. I'm not sure, but I do believe that was the case. Again, the album comes out to a resounding thud. People were not ready for this sort of saccharine version of Kiss. The danger and the unexpected had gone out of the personas, of the stage presence, of the music, and people were not ready for it. It took Kiss quite a few years to get back to where they were. And again, with the albums that they did in the 80s, after The Elder, Creatures of the Night, Look It Up, Animalize, Asylum, did they recapture their glory? That's up to you out there to decide. Um, I think maybe on some level they did, because Eric Carr was a hell of a drummer. Uh, Brought a lot of bottom end in terms of heavy drumming to the band. He also played guitar and bass, so he was I guess you call him a multi-instrumentalist. But in terms of this album overall, was this album a misguided step, or was it misunderstood by the fans? I do believe that it was a misguided step in the fact that when it was released, had they released a rock album, pure rock album, after Unmasked, and try to get back their hardcore audience, um, and then maybe released the Elder after the fact, after a hard rock album. I do believe, like, if they had released Creatures of the Night first and then released the Elder, I do believe that they would have had more success, and their fortunes wouldn't have dwindled as such. Um, um, Ace Frehley has said as much, that the album is a good album. Well, first he said that when he heard it, he just took the disc and smashed it against the wall. Didn't want to hear it. But upon reflection, he believes that it is a good album, and it just wasn't the album that they needed to make, or they should have made at the time in 1981. Had they again released a rock album like Creatures and then released The Elder after the fact, that would have maybe been a bit of a different story. So again, was this album a misguided step, or was it misunderstood by the masses? Um, I don't believe it was misunderstood by the masses. I believe that it was an album that people just didn't want to hear from Kiss. And to this day, they agree. After the initial uh, promotion of the album was done, they agree that it was a mistake. Um, was it a misguided step? Yeah, I think it was a misguided step. Again, had they released Creatures after um, Unmasked, then it would have and then released The Elder, it would have made more sense, because you would have gotten your fans back. Your fans would have thought that they were more back on track as to, a Kiss of the 70s in terms of the hard rock stuff. And then they could have ventured off into doing a concept album. And even to this day, people ask them, like, are you going to tour are you ever going to tour and do the album The Elder in its entirety? And they literally look at their fans and say, like, are you nuts? Like, you need medical attention. I do believe that The Elder was music from The Elder was more popular in Australia or in Europe, certain European territories. But in North America, it died a very quick death, and it's never been resurrected from the ashes. Um, so yeah, but anyways, that's the end of the episode. Please again leave your comments down below. Do you think that the music from The Elder was a misguided step? Was it a misunderstood album by the fans? Do you like The Elder? Do you not like The Elder? Are you indifferent? Should they release an Elder box set? That's going to get me in trouble. But anyways, please leave your comments down below, and hit like and subscribe. Sorry, hit like and subscribe, and please hit the notification bell to keep on top of any new content that I'll be posting. So for now, please have a great day. Have a good night. Look after yourselves and each other, and please be safe. and I will see you very soon with another video. Bye for now.